Welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Kevin Simcock. And before we get into this episode, yes, you're not going crazy. The name of the podcast has changed yet again. There's lots of different reasons for why, but the main reason is I needed to change names so that it's more in line with what this podcast actually delivers, but also so that it could have a name that isn't taken by hundreds of other people out there with a similar podcast name. So you're not going crazy. You are in the right place. The name of this podcast is now What's Next After Success, because that's essentially what we talk about. So I hope you will continue to listen and follow this podcast and my journey as we dig deeper into the topics that can hopefully help you on your journey in building your next chapter. So today I want to talk about success and what it's like on the other side of success. What is life like when we actually achieve success? Because so many of us are out there chasing down and going after our own definition of success in the hopes that one day when we finally achieve it and reach it, that our lives are going to be better. And I want to talk about what that's like on the other side of success. Because for many people, success actually loses its sense of significance once they obtain it. It's not that it kind of disappoints us, because there's lots of benefits to it being successful and achieving success. And there are some very positive impacts that success can have on our lives. But I've witnessed something interesting about success and what happens once we achieve it. You see, for many of us, and myself included, we spend years, we spend decades building that career, building that business, sacrificing everything, believing that if we work hard enough, if we earn enough, if we scale the business to that next level, if we achieve enough, that eventually we'll arrive at this place called success and we'll feel like we've made it and everything will be better because of it. But is that really the case? So I want to talk about what that other side of success looks like in an efforts that, it gives you some perspective and insight as to maybe considering the definition of success that you're currently following and how to plan accordingly for that other side of success, because eventually we're all going to get there. Hopefully we're all going to get there. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is what I call the promise that we all bought into. And if you're anything like me, you grew up hearing and believing in the anecdotes of achievement equals fulfillment, that you have to strive, you have to work hard in order to achieve success. And we've heard sayings like, to the victor goes the spoils, that hard work pays off and sacrifice leads to success. And we are indoctrinated into the belief that in order to keep going, in order to reach the next level, that we have to give more of ourselves in order to achieve that. And in that process, we make sacrifices. We silence parts of ourselves that success doesn't require. We forget about parts of ourselves that were passionate and curious and wanted to do something that success doesn't require. Most of the time, we postpone meaning and purpose in what we do, believing that as soon as we reach success, it's going to come then. This is why I think most founders who exit a business, whether they sell it, scale it, a merger, whether they're pushed out by a board, whatever the definition of how they get to the exit is, most founders after the exit, they feel a sense of loss, and they feel lost without their business because it was such a significant part of their life. It was their daily routine. It was their sense of significance. It was their sense of identity. It was everything that they did. Same holds true for building a career. We do everything in our power. We sacrifice, we make decisions, we climb that corporate ladder, we aim for those promotions, all in an effort to eventually reach the top of that corporate ladder and to reach that level of success that we've been told to achieve. But once you get there, once you get to the top of that ladder, once you get on the other side of business ownership, something happens. We begin to question if all of that success and sacrifice was worth it. Yes, success brings us financial freedom, and financial security buys us the freedom to do what we want, when we want, with who we want. But it also exposes a deeper question that I think most of us struggle to answer, which is, what do you really want? And who are you now? See, I think success solves many of our surface level problems. And for me, my success did exactly that. It solved a lot of the surface level problems. And yes, it gave some financial security. A lot of the clients that I work with are in the same boat. And so they're left asking the question of, well, what do I do now? Because I thought that this success was going to solve all my problems and make my life that much more enriched. But instead, I'm left here feeling kind of empty. And I'm questioning, well, was it all worth it? And I think that the problem isn't that success fails us. I think we expect success to do something that it was never designed to do, and that is to give us meaning. Which brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is success removes distraction. Let me explain what I mean by this. You see, I think most people think that success is going to give us something. It's going to fulfill us with something. But from what I've seen and from what I've experienced, I believe that what success actually gives us is the space, the stillness, and the time to reflect and finally listen to what it is that we actually want. As you know, if you've worked in corporate, if you've climbed the corporate ladder, if you've built a business, scaled a business, it's always been about achieving more. It's never about achieving less. It's never about settling for what you have and seeing that what you have is enough. The sense of achievement that is required for success tells us that we always have to constantly be achieving more. And so with that comes higher goals, more goals. And there's always constant pressure associated with that. There's always a sense of continually proving our worth. And our worth is attached to our outcome. There's always these annual growth targets that we have to achieve. There's New Year's resolutions that we tell ourselves we have to achieve. All of it becomes ingrained behavior to continually push us to evolve and achieve more. But a funny thing happens when we reach success, when we reach our goals and we achieve it. All of that sense of goal setting and pushing and pressure and sense of proving, it all stops. Eventually, we're surrounded with silence. We're surrounded with freedom. We're given space. And within that space, within that silence, we eventually start asking ourselves, now what? What do I do now? Who am I now? What do I really want? This past weekend, I was out in my old neighborhood and I came across this new coffee shop that just opened up. And this place was really cute on the outside and looked amazing. And I went inside the coffee shop and it was absolutely stunning and beautiful. It was your quintessential Hallmark kind of coffee shop. It was very well designed, had beautiful interior design. There's artwork on the walls. It had this beautiful navy blue counter with marble countertop. And there were country armoires along the walls displaying local artist sculptures and artworks and pottery. And there were beautiful paintings all over the walls. The place was just stunning. It looked like a coffee shop that was out of House and Home magazine. So while I was in the coffee shop, I was fortunate enough to meet the owner. And I had a brief conversation with her, and I was explaining, or I was asking her, how did you get started with the coffee shop? When did you open it? Really loved the design. Who did the design for it? Blah, blah, blah. And she proceeded to tell me that she had been in marketing for over 15 years, and she decided to walk away from her career because she wanted to do something different. And it took her a couple of years to figure out what that was, but she always wanted to open a coffee shop. And when the opportunity presented itself, she jumped at it and she thought this could be her next chapter and thing that she could sink her teeth into. And she wanted to explore it. Now, she also had a passion for interior design. And so she did all the interior design herself. And that kind of blew me away. And I was asking her about the artwork on the walls. I was saying, this artwork's fantastic. Who are the artists? I see you've got all kinds of local artisan products on your shelves that you sell as well. This is great. And she was telling me how the artwork was created by her husband. Her husband is the chief of surgery at a local hospital, and he just happened to be in the coffee shop as well. And so he came over, we started talking, I was explaining how I thought the art pieces were amazing. And he was very humble and he said, well, thank you. It's just like a side hobby. He's always kind of dabbled in it. And I said to him, I said, wouldn't it be fantastic? I said, what if you could turn that into your career? What if you could do that next? And he said, well, I don't think I could ever retire. I'm not the kind of person who could just sit around and do hobbies and play golf and just paint all day. And I found it interesting. That conversation reminded me of something that I've suspected for a long time. You see, most people who have built success, they want to evolve beyond the version of themselves that created it. The woman that I was talking to in the coffee shop, when I was saying to her, I said, well, why didn't you just open up your own marketing company? Why didn't you just do that? And she said, well, I've been there. I've done that. I didn't want to do that again. I wanted to do something totally different. And this woman took a couple years to really explore different avenues before she came across the opportunity to start a coffee shop. But she knew that she didn't want to go back and relive the chapter in the life that she had before. That she wanted something more meaningful and something more purposeful. And when I was thinking about this conversation, it was the exact journey that I had been on myself. And it's one thing that I've come to realize is that when most people are at the threshold, the crossroads, at the beginning of building what's next, they often want something more meaningful and purposeful than what they had before. They aren't sure what that is or what it is that they want, but they do know that they don't want to go back and relive it, that they don't want to go back to who they were and what they did. They don't want more of the same. And this brings me to the third thing that I want to talk about, which is success is never the destination. Like I said earlier, I think most of us go through this process of saying, okay, well, I'm building this career, I'm building this business to finally get to a point where I can reach this level of success, whatever that level looks like. And then once I reach it, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be amazing. My life's going to change and I'll be set. And once I get there, things are going to be better. And it's interesting that the majority of the people that I know and the majority of the people that I work with who have built success, that's not the case. Success isn't the destination that changes everything. Most of the time, it brings us to a place where we kind of take a look back at all the things that we've built, all the things that we sacrificed, and we go, A, was it all worth it? And B, where do I go from here? And usually we end up taking an introspective look at who we are. And there's something that happens at this point that I think is a popular opinion, but one that I do not share myself. And that is the idea that we need to reinvent ourselves. When we reinvent ourselves, or when we put on these facades and masks and become a version of ourselves, it's never the complete version of ourselves. And so reinventing ourselves only means that you're coming up with another version, not the whole version. And I think that we need to reconnect with those pieces of ourselves that we left behind in order to achieve success. Because our next chapter really asks us who we actually are. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean by this. A number of years ago, I was working for a global company as an executive leader, and I was in charge of multiple teams in different countries, different cities. And one of the things that I was tasked with as a leader was to help build company culture. And as a creative leader, I've always believed that everyone has the ability to be creative within them. But it's funny how a lot of people don't see it that way. A lot of people think that they can never be creative, that they're not creative because for whatever reason, mostly it's because of the job that they do on a daily basis has nothing to do with creativity. And so they're not creative people. I've always believed that everyone has the ability to be creative. So what I did is I created this internal program called Creative Juice. And the basis of this program was to promote creativity and to prove to people that everybody is creative. And so part of this program was to create experiences that allowed people to be creative and express themselves creatively. Now, the catch to this program was that you didn't know what was going to happen inside this experience until you showed up for it. And anyone could sign up for it, but once you signed up, you had to commit. And you had to commit without knowing what was going to happen inside that experience. And so what this did is it removed the first layer of a block that I'd see in most people, which is the moment you tell them what they're going to do and they're exposed to something that is outside of their comfort zone. The moment they see it, they will automatically back out of it. They will talk themselves out of it. They will give themselves 100 different reasons why and excuses as to why not to do it. And so I wanted to get rid of that barrier. And the way I did it was by not telling them what they're in for. And so for those who showed up and for those who signed up, they were exposed to a creative experience that would get them out of their comfort zone. And in this one specific session, it was all about how they creatively see the world around them. I wanted people to see that they have a unique perspective of the world around them. The task for this exercise was to capture 5 emotions. I had written 5 emotions down on a piece of paper for everybody. And the task was you need to visually capture these 5 emotions using your phone to capture photographs of real world experiences out on the street that bring to life these 5 emotions. And in doing so, what we were going to do is after they go out and they capture these 5 emotions, we would all come back and we would share these photos and we would do kind of like a gallery expose. One of the things I did to kind of level the playing field, because I knew some of the people would say, well, I'm not good at taking photos. I don't know how to do a professional photograph. I'm not good at taking photos. So again, in order to alleviate that barrier, I had a professional photographer friend of mine come in and teach everyone the basics, how to set up a subject matter in frame, framing techniques for how to take a photo, lighting techniques, camera angles, depth of field, just the basics so that everyone felt that they had enough knowledge to go out and take a good photograph. And then I sent them all out. There was about 30 people that signed up for this. And I sent them all out to the streets around our office. And I gave them 45 minutes. And I can tell you that almost everybody who showed up for this event came with the mindset believing that they weren't creative, that that's not who they were. And when they all came back after the 45 minutes, there was this sense of energy that you could feel from everybody. They were all excited. They all came back and they wanted to desperately share the photographs that they had captured because they couldn't believe the situations that they were able to capture. And something amazing happened. Everyone was so blown away with everyone's photographs. And I can tell you that some of these images were just amazing and breathtaking. And when we were sharing them with everybody within the group afterwards, everyone was clapping, everyone was giving everybody kudos. Everyone was astonished because they couldn't believe that that little quiet person in finance had such a creative eye, that the person in customer service was so creative, that the receptionist at the front of the office was such an amazing photographer. It just brought out everyone's creative instincts. And that's when I knew that experience has the power to transform us and to really bring to life who we truly are, those pieces of ourselves that we silence, that we leave behind, that we push down and ignore because it doesn't fit our version of success. When you experience your life in a different way that allows those other parts of you to come out, that's when you really start to understand who you truly are. And that's when I realized that reflection and introspection and thinking about who we are and intellectualizing who we are, that just helps us to understand ourselves. But experience helps us to remember ourselves. And I believe that experience is the only way for us to know for sure what truly aligns to us, because you can't deny what you feel. You can't second guess that feeling you get when what you're doing connects with who you truly are, because you know it to be true. So in an effort to help you better understand yourself and become more self-aware, here's some reflection questions that you can ask yourself. And I want you to really kind of sit with these and answer these honestly. So the first question is, what part of yourself did success ask you to leave behind? This is I think, a very important one to recognize what you have been sacrificing specifically within yourself in order to achieve success. So what part of yourself did success ask you to leave behind? The second question I want you to reflect on is, what have you achieved that no longer feels meaningful? And I think we all have kind of experiences in our lives where you're so kind of anxious to achieve this thing, or you've got so much high expectations for what this achievement will bring to your life. And then once you achieve it, it kind of no longer feels like it was as significant or meaningful. So what have you achieved that no longer feels meaningful? And that could be a pay raise, it could be a new title, that could be a new customer that you were hoping to land in your business and you finally landed them, and then all of a sudden it wasn't what you expected. So what have you achieved that you no longer feels meaningful? The next question is, if no one expected anything from you, what would you naturally move toward? And what this question does is it detaches achievement from direction. And so if no one expected anything from you, what would you naturally move toward? And that kind of leads to our next question, which is, what experiences make you feel most like yourself? What are those moments and experiences that you naturally gravitate towards because it just feels like you? It feels like that's what you were meant to do. So what experiences make you feel most like yourself? And then the final question that I want you to reflect on is, what does success look like if meaning becomes the measure, not output, not achievement, not some external factor? What does success look like if meaning becomes the measure? So those are the reflection questions that I want you to consider. And by answering those, that'll help you get a better sense of self-awareness of where you are at. So let me wrap up this episode by leaving you with a thought. What if success was never supposed to complete you? What if success, the purpose of it, is simply to create enough space for you to ask a better question? Not, what should I do next? But instead, what kind of life actually feels meaningful for me? Because I believe that's where your next chapter actually begins. Well, that's today's episode. If you're standing at a crossroads and you're thinking to yourself, what comes next? I'm here to help. Together, we can figure out what your next actually is and how to build it in a way that offers more meaning and purpose. A lot of that happens through experiences, not just conversations. If today's episode resonated with you, do me a favor. Please share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. If you want to connect with me, you can reach me at kevinsimcock.com or message me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in finding out more about my journey and my approach to building a next chapter, you can pick up your copy of my book, Whose Ladder Is This? It's available on Amazon, Kindle, it's at Indigo, and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.